There is a reason you are here right now, and no, it is not random. It is not coincidence. It is not just another video you happen to click on while scrolling through your day. You have tried to pass this moment before. You have felt this pull before. You have seen something like this and you moved past it. Once, twice, maybe even 5 times. And yet here you are again. Do you feel that? That strange tension in your chest? That quiet voice inside you asking, why does this keep coming back to me? That is not curiosity. That is not imagination. That is recognition. Because something in your spirit already knows this is not something you were supposed to ignore. Archangel Michael is not a messenger who repeats himself without reason. When he speaks once, it is instruction. When he speaks twice, it is confirmation. But when the message reaches you again and again, when it interrupts your routine, breaks your scrolling, pulls your attention in a way you cannot fully explain, that is no longer a suggestion. That is a summons. You were not just watching content, you were being called. Think about the last few days. The moments when things felt slightly off. The conversations that didn't sit right. The sudden heaviness that came out of nowhere. The small, almost invisible signs that brushed against your awareness, and you dismissed them. You told yourself it was nothing. You told yourself you were overthinking. You told yourself, I'll deal with it later. But what if later is no longer available? What if this moment right now is the very moment everything has been leading toward? Because here is the truth that most people are not ready to hear. Not every warning in your life comes with noise. Some arrive quietly, obediently, patiently, until the moment patience turns into urgency. And that is where you are now. You didn't miss this message 5 times because you were careless. You missed it because something inside you was not ready to face what it carries. Because deep down, you sensed that if you stopped, if you listened, if you truly paid attention, something would shift. Something would be revealed. Something you can no longer unsee. And now, that moment has come. Archangel Michael stands not as a distant symbol, but as a present protector, and his presence does not come casually. When he steps forward, it means something has already begun moving in the unseen. Something has already been set into motion. Something that does not wait for your comfort but requires your awareness. You feel it, don't you? A subtle urgency. That quiet pressure building beneath the surface. Like something is approaching, not fast enough to peg but not slow enough to ignore. This is the divine interruption you could not escape. Not because you are being forced, but because you are being protected. Because if you had continued to scroll, if you had ignored this one more time, you would have walked straight into something unprepared. Something avoidable. Something that required your awareness before it arrived. And that is why you were stopped. That is why you are here. That is why this message found you again and again and again until you finally paused long enough to listen. This is not fear. This is alignment. This is not coincidence. This is timing. And this is only the beginning of what you are about to understand. Type I am listening in the comments if you feel this message reaching you. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around you. You thought it was nothing the first time. Just another message. Just another moment that didn't quite land. You felt the pull, yes, but you dismissed it. You told yourself you were busy. You told yourself you would come back later. And then the second time came, quieter but more persistent. It lingered a little longer in your thoughts. It made you pause just a second more than before. But still you moved on. By the third time, something shifted. You didn't just see it, you felt it. A strange familiarity. A subtle recognition, like hearing your name whispered in a crowded room. You couldn't explain it, but something inside you tightened. And instead of leaning in, you pulled away. Not because you didn't care, but because something in you knew this was not casual. This was not light. This carried weight. And now here you are, being told you have already skipped this 5 times. This is not coincidence. This is a pattern. And patterns, in the spiritual realm, are never ignored. Archangel Michael is not speaking from assumption. He is speaking from observation. Every moment you scrolled past, every time you felt the nudge and chose distraction instead, every instant you sensed something deeper but turned toward comfort. He saw it. Not to judge you, but to understand where you stand. Because avoidance is not just an action, it is a signal. It reveals readiness. It exposes resistance. It uncovers what you are not yet willing to face. Ask yourself this honestly. Why did you skip it before? Was it because you didn't believe it? Or because part of you did? Was it because it felt irrelevant? Or because it felt too specific? Was it because you were too busy? Or because slowing down meant confronting something you've been avoiding? You see, avoidance often disguises itself as logic, as busyness, as distraction. But underneath it, there is always something deeper, something unspoken, something waiting. And now, that waiting has ended. Because when a message repeats itself this many times, it is no longer about information. It is about intervention. There is something about this moment that required your attention before a certain point. A point you may not have been aware of. A point you were approaching with a preparation. And every time you skipped, you moved closer to that point without the clarity you were meant to carry. That is why this feels different now. You are no longer encountering this message casually. You are encountering it at the edge of something. Think back again. The last few days. The unusual timing of things. The way certain conversations felt slightly misaligned. The way your intuition tried to speak, but you brushed it aside. The way you felt a brief moment of unease and then quickly distracted yourself from it. That was not random. That was the beginning of awareness trying to break through your pattern of avoidance. Because avoidance has a cost too. Not always immediate. Not always visible. But always present. Every time you ignore a warning, you don't cancel what's coming. You only delay your awareness of it. You walk forward, but without the insight that could have changed how you respond when it arrives. And that is where the danger quietly forms. Not in what is coming, but in being unprepared for it. Archangel Michael is revealing something critical right now. This is not the first warning you have received about what is forming around you. It is simply the first one you have chosen to stay with long enough to hear. Let that settle. You were not unaware. You were avoiding awareness. And there is a difference. Because awareness requires stillness. It requires attention. It requires you to stop running from the subtle signals your spirit hath been trying to show you. And that is exactly what hath been difficult for you lately, hasn't it? Staying still. Listening deeply. Trusting what you feel without needing external confirmation. So instead, you moved. You scrolled. You distracted yourself. You chose noise over clarity. But now the noise hath been interrupted. Now the pattern has been broken. And now you are being asked, not gently, but directly, to face what you have been avoiding. Because what is approaching does not wait for readiness. It only responds to awareness. And this moment right now is your shift from avoidance into awareness. This is where everything begins to change. Type I see the pattern in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 2222 is now surrounding your path. Time is no longer moving the way you think it is. It may look normal on the outside, clocks ticking, minutes passing, everything appearing as it always has. But in the unseen, something has accelerated. Something has shifted from preparation into motion. And this is the moment where Archangel Michael steps forward with unmistakable urgency and says, "There are only 3 hours left. Not 3 hours of panic, not 3 hours of fear, but 3 hours of awareness. 3 hours where what you choose to do with your attention, your spirit, your stillness will determine how you meet what is already forming. Because the truth is, what is coming is not being created now. It has already been set in motion. Let that settle within you. This is not a sudden event. This is not something that just appeared out of nowhere. This is the result of movements, decisions, energies, and alignments that have been building quietly behind the surface of your daily life. And while you were living, working, thinking everything was normal, something else was taking shape. Now, the moment of intersection is near. That is why the urgency feels different. It is no longer distant. It is no longer something you can push aside and return to later. The window is narrowing, and you are being pulled into awareness at the exact point where awareness matters most. 3 hours. Why 3? Because there is still time, not to stop what is coming, but to prepare how you receive it. To position yourself in clarity instead of confusion. To stand in awareness instead of reaction. To respond with alignment instead of being overwhelmed by surprise. This is not about escaping something. This is about facing it correctly. You may already feel it. A subtle tension in the air. A quiet pressure that has no obvious source. A sense that something is slightly off, even if nothing around you has visibly changed. That is not imagination. That is perception adjusting to a shift that has already begun. The countdown is not external. It is internal. Your spirit is being aligned to recognize what your eyes have not yet seen. And here is what makes this moment so critical. When something arrives without awareness, it feels like shock. But when something arrives with awareness, it becomes revelation. The event itself does not change. Your experience of it does. That is why you are being given this time window. Not to control the outcome, but to control your position within it. Because position determines clarity, and clarity determines response. If you enter this moment distracted, you will react. If you enter it aware, you will understand. There is a difference. Think about how many times in your life something happened suddenly, and afterward you realize there were signs. Small signals. Subtle feelings. Moments you ignored that, in hindsight, were pointing toward what was coming. And you told yourself, I should have paid attention. This is that moment before that realization. This is the moment where you are no longer in hindsight. You are in preparation. 3 hours is not random. It is precise. It is the final stretch where distraction must end and attention must begin. Where noise must quiet down and awareness must rise. Where you stop looking outward for explanations and begin listening inward for alignment. Because what is approaching your house, your environment, your space, your immediate reality, is not just an external event. It is something that will interact with your energy, your awareness, your perception, and how you meet it will shape what it becomes for you. This is why Archangel Michael is not whispering. He is not gently suggesting. He is declaring. Because declarations happen when something has reached a point where delay is no longer possible. 3 hours means this is happening. Not later. Not eventually. Now. So what do you do with this? You become still. Not frozen. Not afraid. But still enough to observe. Still enough to notice what you have been missing. Still enough to feel what has been trying to reach your awareness before this moment. You disconnect from unnecessary noise. You step away from distractions that pull your focus outward. You allow your mind to settle, your thoughts to slow, your attention to sharpen. Because clarity does not come through chaos. It comes through stillness. And in these final hours, stillness becomes your greatest protection. You do not need to chase answers. You do not need to force understanding. You only need to remain present enough to recognize what reveals itself when the moment arrives. Because it will. And when it does, you will either meet it as shock or as confirmation. The choice is not in what happens. The choice is in how aware you are when it does. 3 hours remain. And the countdown has already begun. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you are choosing clarity in this moment. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your awareness. As this moment of urgency settles into your spirit, understand this: what you are receiving right now is not just for you. There are others still lost in distraction, still missing their moment, still walking toward what could have been revealed if only someone reached them in time. When you sow into this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not supporting a message. You are opening a pathway for another soul to awaken before their moment arrives. The word declares, one plants, another waters, but God gives the increase, and right now, you are being invited to plant into something eternal. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into this moment not as a viewer, but as a vessel to help others hear what I almost missed. Your giving becomes light in someone else's darkness, clarity in someone else's confusion, and protection in someone else's storm. Do not delay this act of obedience. Move as the Spirit is prompting you now. And as you release, may heaven release back into your life multiplied awareness, protection, and divine timing. What is coming is not what you think it is, and that is exactly why it has the power to shake you. You hear the word shock, and your mind immediately tries to define it. You imagine something loud, something dramatic, something obvious. You expect something that announces itself clearly, something you can prepare for in a physical sense. But Archangel Michael is revealing something deeper now. This shock is not just an event. It is an unveiling. It is a moment where something hidden becomes visible. It is a moment where something you assumed was stable suddenly reveals its instability. It is a moment where something you trusted begins to show a different face. And that is why it feels so intense. Because the shock is not only in what happens, it is in what is revealed. There is something within your immediate environment, your space, your household, your inner circle, that has not been fully seen for what it truly is. Not because you are blind, but because it hath been concealed beneath normalcy, beneath routine, beneath familiarity. And familiarity has a way of making things feel safe, even when they are not fully aligned. This is where the shock forms, not from something completely new, but from something already present, subtly shifting into clarity. Think about that carefully. What if the shock is not an arrival but an exposure? What if it is not about something entering your life but something already there revealing its true nature? This is why Archangel Michael hath been urgent. Because exposure without awareness leads to confusion. But exposure with awareness leads to understanding. And understanding is what protects you. There is a moment approaching where something will not feel the same as it did before. A conversation may shift in tone. A situation may unfold differently than expected. A truth may surface that you are not consciously looking for. And in that moment, your reaction will determine everything. Because shock has two paths. It can disorient you or it can awaken you. If you meet it unprepared, it will feel overwhelming. It will feel sudden, confusing, even unsettling. You may question what you are seeing. You may doubt your perception. You may try to rationalize it quickly, just to regain a sense of control. But if you meet it aware, it becomes confirmation. It becomes the missing piece that suddenly makes everything make sense. That is why this preparation matters. Because the nature of this shock is not destruction. It is revelation. And revelation always feels intense when it arrives, especially when it disrupts something you thought you understood. You may be wondering now, what exactly will happen? But that is not the right question. The right question is, what are you being prepared to see? Because the event itself is only the surface. The deeper impact lies in what it shows you, what it uncovers, what it clarifies that was previously blurred. And once something is seen clearly, it cannot be unseen. That is why part of you has been resisting this moment. Not consciously, but internally. Because clarity changes things. It shifts how you relate to people, how you interpret situations, how you move forward from that point on. Clarity removes comfort when that comfort is built on illusion. And that can feel like a shock. But it is also a form of protection. Archangel Michael does not bring warning to create fear. He brings warning to prepare perception, to ensure that when the moment arrives, you are not caught in denial. You are not pulled into confusion. You are not reacting from emotion alone. You are seeing. You are understanding. You are grounded. There is also something else you must recognize. The word house is not only physical. Yes, it includes your home, your immediate surroundings, but it also represents your inner space, your emotional environment, your sense of stability and security. So when the message says the shock will hit your house, it means this moment will touch something close to you, something personal, something within your immediate reality, not something distant or irrelevant. That is why it matters. This is not happening somewhere far away. This is happening within your field of experience. And when it does, you will feel it. But feeling it is not the danger. Misinterpreting it is. That is why you are being aligned now. So that when the shift happens, you do not respond from fear, but from clarity. Not from confusion, but from awareness. Not from reaction, but from understanding. Because once you understand what is truly being revealed, the shock loses its power. It transforms into insight. It becomes direction. It becomes the moment where something hidden finally steps into the light, allowing you to move forward differently than before. This is not the end of something. This is the unveiling of something that was always there, waiting for the right moment to be seen. And that moment is approaching now. Type I am ready to SE in the comments if you are prepared for clarity. Lesson code 4444 is now surrounding your environment. You may be asking yourself now, quietly, almost cautiously, why me? Why your house? Why your environment? Why your life, your space, your reality? Out of all the places, all the people, all the possible paths, why is this moment centered around you? Archangel Michael answers this not with comfort, but with truth. It is not random. It is not accidental. And it is not without purpose. Your house has not been targeted because it is weak. It hath been targeted because it carries something significant. Something that may not always be visible on the surface, but is deeply recognized in the unseen. Something within your life, your presence, your energy, your direction has begun to shift. And whenever something begins to shift toward clarity, toward growth, toward alignment, there is always resistance before expansion. This is not punishment. This is positioning. There is something about you that has been changing, even if you have not fully acknowledged it yet. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you perceive certain situations, it is not the same as it was before. You have started to notice things differently. You have started to question things you once accepted. You have started to feel a subtle distance from what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. And that shift has not gone unnoticed. Not by the people around you, not by the energy within your environment, and not by the forces that respond to change before it fully manifests. Your house represents more than a physical structure. It represents your foundation, your emotional ground, your personal space where your thoughts settle, where your energy resets, where your sense of control feels strongest. And when something is about to shift in your life, it often begins at the level of your foundation. Because if your foundation changes, everything built upon it begins to change as well. That is why this moment is centered here. There is something within your immediate environment that can no longer remain as it has been. Something that may have felt normal, routine, even stable, but beneath that stability there has been a quiet misalignment, a subtle imbalance that has gone unaddressed, not because you ignored it intentionally, but because it did not seem urgent enough to confront. Until now. Because now, the moment of confrontation is arriving, not as conflict, but as clarity. This is where many people misunderstand what it means to be targeted. They assume it means something negative is being sent toward them. But often, being targeted simply means being the point where something must change. And you have become that point. You are the one in your space who is beginning to see differently, to feel differently, to question what others may still accept without awareness. And that awareness shifts dynamics. It changes how things function around you, even if no one says it out loud. That is why this moment feels personal. Because it is. Not in a harmful sense, but in a transformative one. There is also something deeper you must understand. When you begin to move toward clarity, everything around you that is unclear starts to surface. Not to harm you, but to be seen. Because clarity cannot fully exist in an environment where things remain hidden. So what is happening now is not an attack on your house. It is an exposure within your house. An unveiling of something that has been part of your environment, your routine, your interactions, your inner world, but has not been fully recognized for what it is. And because it is close to you, because it is within your space, because it is part of your house, it carries weight. It matters. This is why Archangel Michael steps in at this exact moment. Not to remove you from your environment, but to strengthen your awareness within it. To ensure that when the shift happens, you are not caught in confusion or emotional reaction. You are grounded. You are observant. You are able to see clearly without immediately trying to control or fix what you are seeing. Because not everything revealed needs to be reacted to instantly. Some things need to be understood first. And understanding requires space, stillness, and awareness. You are being positioned to hold that space. To not be overwhelmed by what surfaces. And not fall into the instinct of immediate reaction. But to remain steady long enough to recognize what this moment is truly showing you. Because once you see it, you will understand why it had to happen here. Why it had to involve your space. Why it had to reach your awareness. And why you were the one chosen to witness it. This is not about vulnerability. This is about significance. Your house has been chosen as the point where something shifts from hidden to visible, from unclear to understood, from unnoticed to undeniable. And you are being prepared not just to experience that shift, but to recognize it for what it truly is. A moment of truth. A moment of clarity. A moment that changes how you move forward from here. Type "I understand my role" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 5555 is now aligned with your foundation. There is something you must understand now, and you must understand it deeply. This moment is not happening without protection. You are not being left exposed. You are not being placed into a situation without guidance. And most importantly, you are not facing what is coming alone. Because Archangel Michael is not simply delivering a message. He is standing in position. He is not distant. He is not symbolic. He is present. And when his presence becomes active like this, it is not for something small. It is because something has reached a point where protection must become visible, where guidance must become direct, where awareness must be reinforced by something greater than your own understanding. Michael is known as a protector, but that word is often misunderstood. Protection is not always about preventing something from happening. Sometimes, protection is about ensuring that when something does happen, it does not harm you in the way it could have. Protection is clarity. Protection is awareness. Protection is positioning you so that you are not caught off guard, not misled, not overwhelmed by what unfolds. That is what is happening right now. You were not warned so that you could escape this moment. You were warned so that you could stand correctly within it. Because Archangel Michael does not remove you from every challenge. He strengthens you within it. He aligns your perception so that what might have confused you before now becomes clear. What might have shaken you before now becomes manageable. What might have pulled you into reaction now becomes something you can observe without losing your center. That is real protection. And you are standing within it. There is also something else you need to recognize. Michael does not intervene without reason. His involvement signals that what is unfolding carries weight beyond the surface. It means there is more to this moment than what will be visible at first glance. There is a deeper layer, a deeper meaning, a deeper shift that requires your awareness to be heightened. That is why you feel this intensity. Because his presence amplifies awareness. You may not see him, but you feel the shift in your perception. You feel the pull to pay attention. You feel the subtle strengthening within you, even if you cannot fully explain it. That is not coming from your mind alone. That is alignment. That is protection activating. And here is what you must hold on to. Protection does not remove responsibility. It enhances it. You are still required to be aware. You are still required to observe. You are still required to choose how you respond when the moment arrives. Michael stands with you, but he does not override your awareness. He does not force your reaction. He ensures that you have what you need internally so that your response comes from clarity instead of confusion. That is why this message hath been so persistent. Because protection begins with attention. If you are distracted, you cannot recognize what is being revealed. If you are caught in noise, you cannot hear what your awareness is trying to tell you. If you are moving too quickly, you miss the subtle shifts that signal what is actually happening. So what does Michael do? He interrupts. He brings your attention back. He pulls you out of distraction and into presence. That is exactly what has happened here. You were moving through your day, through your routine, through your thoughts, and something stopped you. Something redirected your attention. Something made you pause. That was not random. That was protection in action. Because the most powerful form of protection is not always visible force. It is precise timing. You were brought into this moment at the exact point where you could still align yourself, before the shift reaches you. That is not coincidence. That is intervention. And now that you are here, now that your awareness has been activated, now that you have stepped out of avoidance and into clarity, you are no longer unprepared. You are positioned. You are supported. You are aware. And that changes everything. Because when the moment arrives, you will not be reacting blindly. You will not be caught in confusion. You will not be pulled into unnecessary fear. You will recognize. You will understand. You will remain steady. That is what Michael ensures. Not that nothing happens, but that what happens does not destabilize you. There is strength being anchored within you right now, even as you listen to this. A quiet steadiness, a subtle grounding, a sense that, even if something shifts, you will not lose control of yourself. That is not accidental. That is protection taking form within your awareness. So when the moment comes, do not forget this. You are not alone. You are not unsupported. And you are not unprepared. Archangel Michael stands in position, not behind you, not far away, but with you, ensuring that what unfolds becomes something you can face with clarity, strength, and control. And that is the difference between being overwhelmed and being protected. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 6666 is now activated around your spirit. Before anything ever reaches the surface, he always whispers first. It does not begin with noise. It does not begin with something obvious or undeniable. It begins quietly, almost gently, as if testing whether you are paying attention. And more often than not, those first signals are not external at all. They come from within you. You have felt them. Not once and not twice, but repeatedly. That subtle uneasiness that appeared for no clear reason. A moment where everything looked normal, yet something inside you said, "This doesn't feel right." The quiet hesitation before responding to someone. The sudden shift in your mood without any visible cause. The way your energy changed in certain spaces or on certain people during certain conversation. Those were not random fluctuations. Those were signals. But here is where the pattern becomes clear. You did not fully follow them. You noticed them, yes. You felt them, yes. But you did not stay with them long enough to understand what they were trying to show you. Instead, you moved past them. You explained them away. You told yourself it was just stress, just overthinking, just a temporary feeling that would pass. And it did pass. But it kept returning. That is how awareness works when it is not fully received. It does not disappear. It repeats itself. Each time slightly stronger, slightly more noticeable, slightly more difficult to ignore. Think back carefully. There were moments where you almost questioned something but then stopped yourself. Moments where you sensed a shift in someone's behavior but chose not to explore it. Moments where you felt a disconnect in an otherwise familiar situation but told yourself you were imagining it. You were not imagining it. You were perceiving it. There is a difference. Imagination creates without evidence. Perception responds to something that already exists. And what you were feeling was not created by your mind. It was picked up by your awareness. This is what Archangel Michael is revealing now. The signs were not missing. They were present. They were consistent. But they were not fully acknowledged. And when signs are not acknowledged, they accumulate. They build quietly beneath your conscious attention, forming a pattern that only becomes visible when something brings it into focus. And that is exactly what is happening now. This moment is not introducing something new. It is bringing together everything you have already felt but did not fully process. That is why this feels familiar. Because on some level, you already know. You just have not allowed yourself to fully see it. There is also something important you must recognize about these signs. They were not meant to alarm you. They were meant to guide you. But guidance requires trust, and trust in your own perception is something you have hesitated with. You have questioned yourself more than necessary. You have doubted what you felt, even when it was clear. You have prioritized external logic over internal awareness, even when your awareness was consistent. And in doing so, you created a gap between what you sensed and what you accepted. That gap is where confusion grows. But now, that gap is closing, because you are no longer moving past the feeling. You are staying with it. You are allowing it to speak. You are beginning to recognize that what you felt before was not something to dismiss, but something to understand. This is where everything shifts. Because once you start trusting what you feel, your awareness sharpens. You begin to notice details you previously overlooked. You begin to connect patterns you previously saw as isolated. You begin to see continuity where before there was only confusion. And suddenly, what felt uncertain becomes clear. That is the moment you are approaching. The moment where the signs you once ignored begin to make sense all at once. The uneasiness, the subtle shifts, the moments of hesitation, the unexplained changes in energy. They were all pointing in the same direction. They were all preparing you for this realization. And now, you are no longer avoiding it. You are recognizing it. This is why Archangel Michael brought your attention here before the moment arrives. Because when the signs finally align with the event, you will not experience it as something completely new. You will experience it as confirmation. You will recognize it as the thing your awareness has been trying to show you all along. And that recognition removes fear. Because fear comes from the unknown. But when something becomes known, even if it is intense, it becomes manageable. It becomes something you can face without losing your center. That is what these signs were preparing you for. Not to confuse you, not to overwhelm you, but to ensure that when the moment comes, you are not seeing it for the first time. You are simply seeing it clearly. Type "I trust what I feel" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 7777 is now strengthening your awareness. What you are witnessing right now is not the beginning of the battle. It is the moment you are becoming aware that the battle has already begun. Long before this message reached you, long before you paused to listen, long before you started connecting the signs, you were already standing in the middle of something that had been quietly unfolding around you. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that immediately demanded your attention, but in a subtle, strategic way that operated beneath your daily awareness. That is how these battles work. They do not announce themselves. They develop in silence. They build through small shifts, through unnoticed patterns, through moments that feel insignificant on their own but form something larger when connected. And by the time you begin to sense that something is off, the movement is already in motion. That is exactly where you are now. You are not at the start. You are at the point of realization. And realization is powerful because it changes your position instantly. You are no longer moving through this unaware. You are no longer reacting blindly to what unfolds. You are stepping into a state of awareness that allows you to see beyond the surface. Because what is happening is not just physical. It is not just about circumstances, people, or situations. There is a deeper layer to this. There is an unseen influence shaping how things are unfolding around you, and that influence responds to awareness. The moment you become aware, the dynamic changes. The moment you stop moving unconsciously and start observing consciously, you begin to disrupt patterns that were previously operating without resistance. This is why awareness feels intense, because it shifts the balance. Before, things moved around you while you adapted to them without fully recognizing their direction. And now, you are beginning to see the direction itself. You are noticing the flow, the patterns, the subtle alignments that point toward something larger than isolated events. And once you see that, you cannot go back to not seeing it. This is where many people feel overwhelmed, not because of what is happening, but because of what they are starting to understand. The realization that something deeper has been unfolding can feel unsettling at first. It can make you question what is real, what is intentional, what is simply coincidence, and what is part of a pattern. But this is where Archangel Michael's presence becomes critical, because awareness without grounding leads to confusion. Awareness with grounding leads to clarity. And you are being grounded right now. You are not being shown this to make you fearful. You are being shown this so that you can stand correctly within it. So that when things unfold, you are not trying to figure everything out in the moment. You are recognizing patterns that have already been forming. There is something else you must understand. This battle is not about overpowering you. If it were, you would not have been given awareness. You would not have been warned. You would not have been positioned like this before the moment arrives. The very fact that you are here, that you are hearing this, that you are beginning to connect what you have felt with what is being revealed, this is evidence that you are not on the losing side of this. You are being prepared, not overwhelmed. And preparation changes everything. Because when you are prepared, you do not react impulsively. You do not get pulled into unnecessary fear. You do not misinterpret what is happening around you. Instead, you observe. You remain steady. You allow clarity to guide your response instead of letting emotion take control. That is what separates awareness from reaction. This is also why timing matters so much right now. You were not meant to realize this too early, when it would not have made sense. And you were not meant to realize it too late, when it would have already passed without your understanding. You are realizing it at the exact point where it becomes useful, where it becomes actionable, where it changes how you meet what is coming. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. There is movement happening in your environment, in your interactions, in your immediate space. Small things that may seem ordinary on the surface, but when viewed together, reveal a direction. And that direction is what you are now able to see. That is the battle. Not chaos, not destruction, but influence. And influence loses its power the moment it is recognized. So as you move forward from this moment, do not look at what is happening as something against you. Look at it as something you are now able to see clearly. Something that no longer operates in the background without your awareness. Because once you see it, you are no longer affected in the same way. You are positioned differently. You are grounded differently. You are aware. And awareness is what shifts the outcome. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you feel this truth. Blessing code 8888 is now activated around your clarity. As your awareness opens to what has been unfolding, understand this. There are others still walking through the same patterns without clarity, still facing the same unseen battles without guidance, still missing the very moment that could change everything for them. When you give through the PayPal link in the description, with the QR code on your screen, you are not simply offering support. You are becoming part of a divine flow that carries light into places where confusion still exists. The word speaks, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is that moment where your seed becomes someone else's awakening. I feel this strongly and I am choosing to act now. because I know what it means to almost miss what was meant for me. Your giving is not ordinary. It is a spiritual act that opens pathways, lifts veils, and reaches souls at the exact moment they need it most. Do not hesitate when your spirit is being moved. Step into this action now. And as you release, may clarity, protection, and divine alignment flow back into your life in ways you did not expect. There comes a moment in every unfolding situation where everything pauses, not externally, not visibly, but internally, and a decision forms. Not a loud, dramatic decision that announces itself, but a quiet, defining one. A moment where you either continue the way you have been or you shift. You are standing in that moment now. Everything that has been revealed to you so far, the repeated messages, the pattern of avoidance, the countdown, the approaching shift, the awareness of something already in motion. It has all been leading to this point. Because awareness alone is not enough. Awareness requires a response. And that response is not something you delay. It is something you choose. Right now. There are only two directions available to you in this moment, and they are not complicated, but they are significant. You can either return to distraction, to doubt, to second-guessing what you have felt and heard, or you can step fully into awareness and trust what is being shown to you. This is the decision, and it is more important than you realize, because what is approaching does not wait for you to feel completely ready. It does not adjust based on hesitation. It does not slow down because you are unsure. It arrives exactly as it is meant to, and when it does, your level of awareness determines your level of control within it. This is why hesitation is dangerous. Not because it changes the event itself, but because it changes how you meet it. If you hesitate, you fall back into old patterns, overthinking, dismissing, doubting, explaining things away too quickly. You begin to question your own perception again. You start to look for external validation instead of trusting what you already feel internally. And in doing so, you weaken your position. But if you decide, fully, clearly, without pulling back, that you are going to remain aware, everything shifts. Your attention sharpens. Your perception stabilizes. Your reaction slows down just enough for you to observe instead of immediately respond. That is the difference between being pulled into something and standing within it. This is not about making a decision out of fear. It is about making a decision out of clarity. Because deep down, beneath the questions, beneath the hesitation, beneath the instinct to second guess, there is a part of you that already knows what is happening. A part of you that recognizes the pattern. A part of you that has felt the shift before it was explained to you. That part of you is not confused. That part of you is certain. But you have not always listened to it. And that is what must change now. This decision is not about controlling what is coming. It is about choosing how you will stand when it arrives. Will you stand grounded, aware, and observant? Or will you stand uncertain, reactive, and trying to catch up to something that is already unfolding? Because once the moment arrives, there is no time to go back and prepare. There is only time to respond. And your response will come from whatever state you choose right now. That is why this is critical. Not later. Not after more thinking. Not after more signs. Now, there is also something deeper happening within this decision. It is not only about this moment. It is about breaking a pattern that has existed within you. The pattern of sensing something but not fully trusting it. The pattern of noticing something but not acting on it. The pattern of feeling something but choosing comfort over clarity. That pattern ends here. Because if you choose awareness now, you are not only preparing for what is approaching, You are changing how you move forward from this point on. You are strengthening your ability to recognize, to trust, to remain steady in moments where before you may have felt uncertain. And that carries beyond this situation. That becomes part of who you are. This is why Archangel Michael has brought you to this exact point, not just to warn you, but to position you in a place where your decision changes everything that follows. Because once you decide to remain aware, you are no longer moving blindly through your own life. You are present. You are engaging. You are aligned. And alignment creates clarity even in moments that would otherwise feel chaotic. So take this moment seriously, not with fear but with intention. Because what you choose right now is not small. It is the foundation for how you will meet what is already on its way. And when it arrives, you will know immediately whether you chose awareness or whether you hesitated. Type "I choose awareness" in the comments if you are making this decision now. Blessing code 9999 is now activated within your clarity. There is a truth that must be faced in this moment, and it is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to ground you. Because ignoring a warning does not stop what is coming. It only removes your awareness of it. And when awareness is removed, what arrives feels heavier, more confusing, more overwhelming than it was ever meant to be. This is what happens when a final warning is ignored. It is not punishment. It is not something being done to you. It is simply the natural result of walking into a moment without the clarity that was offered beforehand. You have already seen how this works in smaller ways throughout your life. Moments where you felt something was off, but you dismissed it. Situations where you sensed a shift, but chose not to explore it. And when the outcome finally revealed itself, it felt sudden, unexpected, even shocking. Yet part of you knew there had been signs all along. Now imagine that same pattern but intensified. Because this is not a minor moment. This is a defining one. If you ignore what is being shown to you now, you do not cancel the event. You simply meet it without preparation. And when that happens, your reaction becomes instinctive rather than intentional. You respond based on confusion rather than clarity. You try to make sense of things in real time instead of recognizing them as they unfold. That is where people lose control, not because the situation is uncontrollable, but because their awareness is delayed. And delayed awareness creates unnecessary struggle. You may begin to question yourself in that moment. You may doubt what you are seeing. You may try to rationalize what does not align. You may feel pulled between what appears to be happening and what you sense internally. And that internal conflict is what creates instability. Not the event itself, but your relationship to it. When you ignore a warning, you also reinforce a pattern, the pattern of disconnecting from your own perception, the pattern of choosing comfort over clarity, the pattern of delaying awareness until it becomes unavoidable. And that pattern does not end with one moment. It continues. It carries forward into future situations, making it harder each time to trust what you feel, harder each time to recognize what is real, harder each time to stand steady when something shifts. That is the true cost of ignoring this. Not just this moment, but the strengthening of a pattern that keeps you disconnected from your own awareness. There is also something else you must understand. When awareness is ignored repeatedly, the signals become stronger. Not because something is trying to overwhelm you, but because subtle guidance is no longer enough. But with once a quiet feeling becomes a clear disruption. What was once a gentle nudge becomes something that forces your attention. That is what a shock becomes when warnings are ignored. Not because it was meant to be intense from the beginning, but because it had become undeniable. That is why this is being called a final warning. Because you have already been given the subtle signs. You have already felt the early signals. You have already had opportunities to recognize what was forming. And now, you are being given clarity before intensity. This is the moment where you either receive it or you meet it later in a way that feels heavier than it needed to be. But even in this, there is something important to hold on to. You are still in the position to choose differently. You are not being told this after the moment has passed. You are being told this before it arrives, which means you still have control over how you meet it. You still have the ability to remain aware. You still have the opportunity to step out of the pattern of avoidance and into the clarity that has been offered to you, and that changes everything. Because once you choose awareness, the outcome may still unfold, but your experience of it will not be the same. You will not feel lost in it. You will not feel overtaken by it. You will recognize it. You will understand it. You will remain grounded within it. That is the difference. So do not treat this as something optional. Do not treat this as something you can return to later, because later is exactly what creates the problem. Now is where the shift happens. Now is where the pattern breaks. Now is where you either step into clarity or step back into delay. And once the moment arrives, you will know exactly which one you chose. Type "I will not ignore this" in the comments if you are choosing awareness now. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your path. Right now, in this exact moment, something is being extended toward you. Not later. Not after the event. Not once everything has already unfolded. But now, before the shift reaches you, before the moment fully arrives, before anything becomes undeniable, protection is being offered. But you must understand what that truly means, because protection is not always what people expect it to be. It is not always about removing the situation. It is not always about stopping what is already in motion. Sometimes, protection is something far more precise, far more powerful. It is positioning. You are being positioned. Positioned in awareness. Positioned in clarity. Positioned in a state where you are not caught off guard, not pulled into unnecessary reaction, not overwhelmed by what unfolds. This is the kind of protection that changes outcomes, not by altering the event itself, but by altering how you experience it, how you respond to it, how you move through it. And that is what is being given to you right now. Think about this carefully. If you had not paused here, if you had continued moving through distraction, through routine, through unconscious patterns, you would have entered the moment exactly as you have entered so many others before, reacting in real time, trying to understand while everything is already happening. But that is not your position anymore. You have been brought into awareness before the moment arrives. That is protection. You have been shown the pattern before it completes itself. That is protection. You have been given the space to become still, to observe, to align your perception before anything demands your reaction. That is protection. And now, it is available to you, but only if you remain within it. Because protection is not forced upon you. It is something you stay aligned with. If you return to distraction, you step out of it. If you begin to doubt what you have already recognized, you weaken your connection to it. If you rush back into noise, into overthinking, into external validation, you lose the clarity that has just been established within you. This is why this moment is so important. Because you are not just receiving protection, you are choosing whether to remain in it. And remaining in it requires something simple, but powerful. Stillness. Not passive stillness, but aware stillness. The kind of stillness where you are present, where you are observing without forcing conclusions, where you are allowing clarity to surface naturally instead of chasing it. Because clarity does not need to be forced. It reveals itself when there is space for it. And that space is what you are being asked to hold right now. There is also something else happening within this protection. It is not only external. It is internal. You are being strengthened. You may not feel it in a dramatic way, but there is a subtle grounding taking place within you. A quiet stability that was not as strong before. A sense that even if something shifts, you will not lose control of yourself. That is not coming from outside of you. That is forming within you. And that internal stability is what allows you to meet the moment without being overtaken by it. Because when you are stable internally, external shifts lose their ability to destabilize you. You see them. You understand them. But you do not collapse within them. That is the highest form of protection. And it is being anchored in you right now. Archangel Michael's role in this is not to remove you from reality. It is to ensure that you are fully present within it. Fully aware. Fully grounded. Fully capable of recognizing what is happening without losing your center. That is why his presence hath been so direct. Because this moment requires clarity, not confusion. It requires grounding, not reaction. It requires awareness, not avoidance. And all of that is being given to you now. So as you move into what is coming, remember this. You are not stepping into it unprepared. You are not stepping into it alone. You are not stepping into it without guidance. You are stepping into it positioned. Positioned to see. Positioned to understand. Positioned to remain steady when everything else might try to pull you out of balance. And that position is your protection. Do not step out of it. Do not lose it through distraction or doubt. Stay with it. Because it is the difference between being overwhelmed and being in control. Type "I stay grounded" in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 1110 is now anchoring protection within you. This is it. Not another moment to pause and think endlessly. Not another opportunity to delay and come back later. Not another message to analyze from a distance, while staying emotionally detached. This is the final call, the moment where everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything you have begun to understand converges into one point of truth. The hour is no longer approaching. It is here. You can feel it now, can't you? That shift in your awareness, that heightened sense of presence, that quiet but undeniable realization that something is different. Not outside of you first, but within you. Because before anything changes around you, something must align inside you. And that alignment is happening now. Archangel Michael does not repeat himself at this stage. He does not soften the message. He does not slow down the timing. When the final call is given, it is because everything has reached its point of readiness. The signs have been delivered. The awareness hath been activated. The preparation has been made available. And now, only one thing remains. Your response. Not your thoughts. Not your analysis. Your response. Because response is what turns awareness into action. It is what transforms understanding into alignment. It is what determines whether you stand in clarity when the moment arrives or whether you fall back into the same patterns that brought you here in the first place. This is why this moment feels intense. Because it is real. Because it matters. Because something is about to unfold within your immediate reality. Within your house, your space, your environment. And when it does, you will not have the luxury of stepping back to prepare again. This is the preparation. Right now. There is no need to panic. There is no need to rush into action without understanding. But there is a need to remain fully present, fully aware, fully grounded in what you have already recognized. Because the final call is not about doing more. It is about being aligned with what is already clear. You already know more than you think you do. You have already felt the signs. You have already recognized the patterns. You have already sensed the shift. And now, you are being asked to trust that completely, without pulling back, without second-guessing, without returning to distraction. Because this is the moment where trust replaces hesitation, where awareness replaces avoidance, where clarity replaces confusion. Here is something else you must hear clearly before this section ends. The shock that has been spoken about will not define you. It will not control you. It will not overwhelm you if you remain in the position you have been guided into. It will reveal. It will confirm. It will bring into the light what has already been forming in the unseen. And when that happens, you will recognize it immediately. Not as something random, not as something chaotic, but as something you were prepared to see. That is the difference. That is why you were brought here. That is why you did not skip this message again. Because this time you stayed. This time you listened. This time you aligned. And because of that, you will not meet what is coming the same way you would have before. You will meet it aware. You will meet it steady. You will meet it in control of your response, even if the situation itself shifts unexpectedly. This is your final moment before the hour fully strikes. Do not lose your awareness now. Do not return to old patterns now. Do not allow doubt to pull you back now. Stay exactly where you are, in clarity, in stillness, in recognition. Because what happens next will not be something you need to fear. It will be something you understand. And understanding is what keeps you grounded when everything else begins to move. This is the final call. And you answered it. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message fully. Blessing code 1212 is now sealed over your path. As this final moment settles into your spirit, understand this. What just reached you was not meant to stop with you. There are countless others standing at the edge of their own moment, unaware, unprepared, still lost in distraction, still missing what heaven is trying to reveal. When you sow through the PayPal link in the description, or the QR code on your screen, you are not giving to a channel. You are releasing light into someone else's darkness, clarity into someone else's confusion, and timing into someone else's destiny. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And this is not just a verse. It is a living promise over every act of obedience. I feel this strongly within this very moment. I am stepping forward because I know what it means to almost miss what was meant for me, and I will not let someone else miss theirs. Your seed becomes a divine signal that reaches another soul before their hour strikes. Do not delay this instruction. Move now, act now, release now. And as you do, may heaven release back into your life multiplied protection, divine alignment, and unstoppable clarity.